Hey there, Capsuleers. You're listening to Low Life, an EVE Online podcast discussing life in low-security space, hosted by Cypher and Spence. The Low Life podcast is not an official CCP Games production. It is a labor of love by two veteran EVE players with a passion for the game, and low-sec life in particular. The views expressed on this podcast are their own. Warning for all you sensitive types out there, we do cuss and troll on this podcast, so listener discretion is advised. The show can be found at evelowlife.podbean.com and on your favorite podcast dissemination apps. And now, on with the show.
Guys, it's been a while. There it is, from the Eve Low Life coming at you. Lots of updates, but I also want to talk about a couple things. I know I sound like I just crawled out of a dumpster the way I'm talking. This episode's going to go up pretty much unedited. We're going to touch on some news real quick, just some headlines, and then we're going to get into a kind of an op-ed discussion piece I have concerning culture in alliances and coalitions and how not having one basically will make an alliance or a coalition a short-term thing in EVE Online. So first, let's go ahead and go over news. Today is October 14th, 2021. It is early in the morning here in Houston, Texas. It is thunderstorming right now, so I'm hoping my power doesn't go out like it has a tendency to do down here in Texas when anything but bright sunshine is going on. Right now I am prepping for Eve Vegas. Wife and I will be leaving here in, let's see, it's Thursday, so in 5 days we're going to be leaving because we're going to be spending about 10 days out in Vegas. We're driving up. Anyway, let me hit the news headlines real quick. I'm not going to get too in-depth on these because a lot of it you can find on eveonline.com or whatever your favorite news carrier is, Imperium.news, whatever it may be. And a lot of the other podcasts hit this stuff too. So just kind of going through the headlines on EVE Online. Yesterday, Eve X Apple was one of the headlines. They now have a native client for Apple, and when you do your login rewards, you'll see that there's little green Apple reward things going on right now. So if you have an Apple computer and you've been running Eve, you don't have to run it in potato mode anymore. They do have a native client for it. So that's pretty cool for our folks that do use an Apple computer. There's some specialist pack sales. I'm not even going to talk about that because I think the specialist packs are stupid. Eve Community Beat. This came out like last week, but now the community team for Eve is going to be doing I guess it's like a bi-weekly little grab of info from the community. So some of the things they talk about in the last one were the Concord Rogue analysis beacons. This is that capital ship level rogue drone thing that they're making. It's been on the test server and they're trying to make some PvE content for caps. It looks like it's basically I guess the guys over on Declarations of War podcast were calling it like horde mode, is what Alexei of Card was saying, where basically there's just, you hold the point and waves of things are coming at you. It gives me like World War Z vibes. The waves of things are coming at you and you got to kill them, and I guess they progressively get harder. If you're into using your caps for PvE, this is something that's coming out for you. They did have an in-game event for the Triglavians as a Totality Day. It was the 1-year anniversary of them completely fucking up the new Eden map and making the Triglavian stuff start. If you don't have PTSD from that, and I hope you enjoyed your Totality Day. They did a partner spotlight on Bjorn B. Great streamer. Love watching his stream. So there's a little piece on there. They also did something on Frost. She puts out a news thing on YouTube every week, which is actually pretty handy, pretty cool. Some decent analysis of what's going on in nullsec. There was some community stuff, community corner. There's looks like some art somebody did with Legos. I guess that was Legos. They talk a little bit about Eve Vegas and Eve London, which are going on soon. Eve Vegas, I did a whole show on it the other day. I did it. It's on our YouTube and our Twitch stream if you want to check that out. But if you are going to Eve Vegas, hopefully I'll run into you there. We plan on doing some live streams while we're there. I say we because I have just about my entire board of directors from our Corp going. As far as I know, no one else one other guy from our alliance is going from our greater coalition, from Wrecking Crew, as far as I can tell, virtually nobody's going. When I was asking in meetups, I've said this a few times, nobody's responded saying like, yeah, I'm going to Eve Vegas. And I know that, things have been tough with COVID and whatnot, but I kind of expected more. When I've talked to folks from other alliances and coalitions, they got a good amount of people going. There's over 300 people that are registered according to Hyper Viper, the guy who's running it. That's pretty cool, especially considering Vegas is still on semi-COVID restrictions. You got to wear masks indoors and whatnot. It's just kind of surprising that from our coalition, from Wrecking Crew, which isn't small, it ain't massive, but it ain't small. There's only like a handful of us going, and the vast majority of them are coming from my corporation. So it's just kind of disheartening with that, I guess. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Anyway, that's the main gist of the news there that we've got going on. So I'm going to go right into the talking topic today, because I'm going to try to keep this episode somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. I want to make this like a drive time episode. And this is going to sound a bit like me bitching, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have a co-host on this one. Is it's just kind of wanted to op-edit. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about something that's been weighing on me a bit lately. Now, if you've listened to my show, I mean, going all the way back to like 2010 when I first started podcasting with Eve, something we talked about, something I've talked about constantly is, in order to be successful as a group in Eve, I don't care whether you're a corporation, an alliance, a coalition, you've got to have some kind of a culture outside of the game. And what I mean by that is, you can't just be an Eve group and expect to survive. Eve is not that type of game. Since it's a simulation and there's so many different things to do, you've really got to have some connections outside the game to keep your group together, to keep that revolving door from spinning so fast with your membership. You've got to have something that makes people want to stick around and hang out with your group. Now, that can be anything from having a niche, like for instance, our corporation caters mainly to military veterans. We're not all military veterans, but for the most part, we got a lot of military veterans. So we have things in common outside the game. Then most of us are, and this goes with most Eve players, like most of us are family guys. We're just about all from the U.S., okay? So that doesn't mean that you have to be, but we have commonalities, right? We don't directly recruit from those pools, but it seems that the magnetism of our culture pulls into that. We also cultivate that culture, meaning that we don't just post about Eve stuff on our Discord. We talk about everything from, military joking memes to our one guy who plays holding his newborn in one hand, and he's on an RC fleet, and he's F1ing with the other hands on his Cerberus, and during fleets. He's a new dad again. This is his second child, and so there's things that we talk about outside of it. It's not just a group of guys who get together for fleets, and then after fleets we go away. And then we don't see each other till the next fleet. The reason why I'm bringing this up is lately I have seen things that I don't enjoy happening, and it's starting to pull some of the fun away from being in a group in Eve. And it's not necessarily in my corporation, but we're seeing pings come across that are, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this in Eve. Everything's a max form. Everything's a CTA. Everything's important, but then when we're looking at the grand scale of things, none of the things we're doing actually feel important in the game, right? We, as being part of a coalition that holds sovereignty in Null, and most of my guys are still low sec at heart. If we're going to be fighting for something, we want it to be worth our time, right? We're all paying at least, the Omegas are paying at least, your $15 a month per account, right? So if you're not plexing it. So with that being said, we want to make sure that our money is being well spent in our time playing. And Eve is different from a lot of games in that the majority of our content is driven by your leadership in your Corp, Alliance, Coalition, whatever, right? Just saying we've got fights isn't necessarily the end-all be-all for some people in Eve. Some people want to, if you're empire building, we want to see that football moved forward down the field, right? We want to see those things. We want that feeling of being part of something greater and that we're contributing. Now, that doesn't mean that every single line member is, single-handedly winning a battle and whatnot. No, it's a group effort. However, what we're running into right now is being part of something that has kind of gotten away from the focus of what it was originally meant to be. An example of that, and I know I'm sounding vague, but the example I want to give is, let's look at how World War B2 has gone, okay, or whatever you want to call it, the Vietnam War, whatever. A couple months ago, it finally came to a, I don't want to call it a crashing halt, because it's not, because now the goons are getting their getting their revenge, and PAPI's getting their just desserts. And it's going to be going on for a while. There's going to be retribution. But if you look at how all that started, and there's so much analysis out there of it, and it's really good stuff, and it's an interesting look into not only gaming, but, human society, just the way we do things. You had a group that came together with a common cause to go against another group. The PAPI guys decided they didn't want goons playing Eve anymore. Right? So that's what it basically came down to. I don't care about all the little minutiae of it. That's what it came down to. They had one thing in common, and that was they had a common enemy. The goons. They didn't like Matani. They didn't like Matani's boys. Villy didn't like how he was apparently treated, whatever it is. But they all came together for their disparate reasons, but the one thing they had common is they hated the goons. So after over a year of persecuting this war, without a cohesive culture in their group, PAPI just imploded. They're breaking up. We're seeing all their different little groups that made them up as this mega coalition, this blue donut as it was called, is now they're eating each other alive. You've got Brave out there spinning in circles trying to figure out what space are we going to take, where are we going to go, all this stuff. And, Brave to me always had such a great thing, the stay classy, and we've got constant fun. They've got a cool leader. I like Dunk. He's a good guy. I think definitely means well, but they're kind of lost in the weeds right now, right? They kind of got orphaned by PAPI. And then you've got Frat, the big mega botting empire, and I do not care who you are or what you believe about them. It's a fact. Take a filament roam through their space. It is a botting empire. Okay, Frat sucks. If you're a Frat member and you're actually listening to this, you're a human, you're not a beep bop boop, get in a real frickin' alliance, because Frat sucks. They're horrible for the game. People talk about goons being horrible for the game or Test being horrible for the game. No, Frat is horrible for this game. Okay, goddamn botters. But you had them financing this whole pogrom against the goons, right? They're this big massive power out there, and they're going to start eating up the rest of New Eden if they can. We've got Winter Coalition that pretty much walked away from this war. They threw their hands up in frustration and said, what the hell are we doing here? This is bullshit. And all of this happened because there was no culture behind it. Goons stayed together from this. And this isn't a kiss the goons ass podcast. That's not what I'm doing. But if you look at it, you have to respect it. Outside of the game, the goons have a culture. They meet together. They have all these different events that they do as friends, not as Eve players. They have all these different special interest groups that aren't just in-game special interest groups, not just like, oh, I'm really into bombers, or I'm an Abyssals guy, or whatever it is. They have actual groups for their people that you can join. They have military vet groups and all this cool shit that they do, right? I'm not in there. I can't see their stuff, but I know about it because I know goons. So I know people who have been goons for years. They have that, and they built that culture. So when things started getting shitty, when people are sitting in 1DQ just waiting to be called for a defense fleet or whatever, or sitting at the wood chipper or doing whatever they got to do, they had things in common, so it was easier for them to stick out the crap, right? The shit. because they had something that they all had in common on the outside of the game. So when you're sitting there in your fleet and you know these people, you can talk about the bullshit stuff, or the, hey man, how's your family doing? Hey, how'd that thing go with your Mustang the other day? You're talking about fixing your crappy Mustang or whatever. They have that. Whereas you sit in some of these coalition fleets on the other side of that, on these alliances and coalitions that do not have a culture, and nobody knows what to talk about other than they try to project the size of their e-penis about whatever, they decide of Eve stuff, their coolest fit, or why somebody else sucks or whatever. That only lasts so long. People start dropping off. It's that mono interest. There's nothing deeper behind it. There's no connection. You guys know this in real life too. There's people in your lives that you have that are friends of convenience for now. You don't have a lot in common, but you're doing something together, whether it be work or a project or whatever. And then you have the other people that have been around for years, right? We've got these two guys in our corporation who have been friends for, I think they said like 22 years. They've never met each other. They've been game friends for 22 freaking years. They're coming up to Eve Vegas next week. They're finally going to meet face to face and hang out. How cool is that? You know what I mean? That friendship that's been there for so long. They obviously have things in common outside the game. They have these commonalities that kept them as friends. And now they're finally going to get to hang out together from, different ends of the country. We're flying out to Vegas. And that's the whole point of Eve Vegas, right? Is to put a human being behind the microphone on the other side of that TeamSpeak or Mumble or whatever server that you're using. It humanizes the game. And that's not unique to Eve, but the way it happens in Eve is unique because it is more important here. With this game just being a massive simulation, to not have that connection with people, it really does take away from the game. That's something I think every new player should be encouraged to look for when they're looking for a corporation. Not just, are you playing in my time zone? Do you have activities that are within my interest set? But what's your culture like? When we post on the Eve Jobs Reddit, for Omni Defense Corps and One Eye, that's Omni Defense Intelligence Network, our nullsec branch, we focus a lot on the culture we have. We talk about, we've got SRP and we've got a buyback program and we do events and, all that stuff. Yeah. But we have a very robust Discord. We have guys that'll just get on and shoot the shit with each other when there's no other games going on, just because they want to hang out and talk. Now, some people would probably be like, oh, that's sad, go get a life. Well, this is, the digital life we have, right? And ever since, especially since COVID, that has become more prevalent in society. Getting back to the point, you look at like Goons, and they have all this culture behind it, and it kept them together. And they were able to stay this ball of friends that defended their space when everything looked bleak and everyone thought it was going to be the end. Everyone outside of Goons were saying, you're not going to beat us. You're not going to beat us. And that wasn't we have more ships than you, because they didn't have more ships than PAPI. It wasn't we have more pilots than you, because they didn't have more pilots than PAPI. But they had something that PAPI didn't. They had friendships. They had friends fighting for each other, right? And any of us who have been in the military know exactly what that means, right? We know exactly what that means to have somebody that's got your back no matter what, right? Some people who haven't been in the military, but maybe you've been in sports, or you're a firefighter or a police officer or whatever, where you're in something that has some type of, let's call it like a fraternal link to the people around you. That's what they have. And that is what allows them to survive when the bullshit happens, right? You can't tell me that sitting in 1DQ, fighting off waves of nerds, was always fun. It couldn't have been fun. It just couldn't have been fun. But they did it, and now they have the upper hand, right? PAPI's dissolved, right? Villy's a ghost. Looking at that, any group that doesn't have some type of a culture, I'm sorry, they're not slated for longevity. Playing this game since 2004, I've seen lots of groups, cool groups, come and go. Groups who have done amazing things in EVE Online come and go. And generally, what causes them to go is the fact that the stagnation of playing the same game over and over again for a long time outweighed the friendships they had in the game. I'll tell you what, right now, I'm in one of those periods where I'm playing EVE more for the people I play with than for the emergent gameplay. Okay, I'm sick of crabbing, and we're low secker guys that move to null sec, but the crabbing sucks already. It's not something I find fun. Now, I'm not one of those guys that's like, I'm gonna go out and get fights all the time, but I like to do different things in the game. I like to go out and find different things to do, and right now, with what's going on with our coalition, it's making it boring as hell. And when you've got people doing CTAs or max forms or whatever you want to call them, and every single fleet is a max form, and it's for stupid things. And when I say stupid things, I'm talking about helping a quote-unquote coalition member who's building their own renter empire defend space against a bunch of kind of new bros and getting their asses whooped because they've overextended doing their rental empire. Their leadership is half AFK, half their leadership team, and there's not enough FCs anymore because people are getting bored and sick of the constant bullcrap fleets. And you know, the trickle down of information to the line members or those who are in, let's call it middle management or, you know, line management, you know, your sergeants and your lieutenants, so to speak. So that would be in a coalition like your CEOs of corporations within the member alliances aren't getting information about what's going on because they're afraid of OPSEC. Well, okay, I completely understand OPSEC. We're pretty good at our OPSEC. We're a bunch of fucking military guys. We try to be, right? So we understand OPSEC, but there's also a point where you've got to make sure your members are bought into the vision and the mission. And if that's not happening, people are just going to not log in, right? Look at what happened to PAPI. Guys just stopped logging in for these fleets. All right, that's not unique to PAPI. That's not unique to Test, which is in a failscade right now. I don't care what anybody says. I've got a lot of friends in Test. A lot. I was in Test back in 2012, and then I was in Fwetit. I did a lot with Test guys. And some of these old guys are like, man, I'm just sick of this shit, right? And this isn't, I'm not trying to like drag the game down. That's not the point of this op-ed here that I'm doing. There's groups out there that have a culture. Those are the groups that you, Mr. Player, Mrs. Player, should be seeking out, okay? And I know the whole don't get involved in the blob, don't get involved in the blue donut. Yeah, totally agree. That stuff sucks. But you don't have to be involved in a massive group to have that culture. There's plenty of alliances out there that have a culture. And if the alliance leaders and the core membership are not trying to make those connections with each other, it's never going to happen. But they first have to decide that they want that to be the thing. They need to have their things. They need to enjoy being around the other people in that group. And if you don't foster that feeling, it's not going to happen, right? Throwing up a board on your forums or whatever that says like, hey, you know, what other hobbies do you have or whatever. Yeah, okay, that's a start. But that's not going to get you to where you need to be. This is people management at this point. This is the guy who sits down like in a business. This is the guy, the person who sits down with the new employee and says to her, so why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do when you're not at work, right? So unfortunately for a lot of people, Eve is a second job, right? And sometimes it feels too much like a second job, but sometimes it's a fun second job, and that's why we pay to play it. So you do have to use some of those normal real-life skills in Eve. And finding out more about your members so you can find out those commonalities and foster that as part of your community is very important. It's very important. And if you're not doing that, I'm telling you right now that these groups, they will fail. I challenge anyone to message me and say, Erdis, you're wrong. These groups are not, you don't have to have any type of culture outside of Eve in order for it to be successful. I challenge you to name someone who one group that does that, right? There's probably not. I mean, just about any Brave member that's been in for a while can pretty much describe Dunk's living room at this point, right? From when he does his little state of Brave messages, his cool little jackets that he wears and the crazy colors and all that stuff, right? You can. I'm not even in Brave and I can do that. But Brave has a culture. And that's why Brave
who just had the shit smacked out of them, not necessarily by goons either. It really happened from their own damn allies, or supposed allies. It's going to take them a while, but Brave will bounce back. Once they figure out who they are again, they just need to do that. They need to get back to roots, and I think that's what Dunk's focus is. He's just trying to get back to roots. And a lot of the bullcrap that's gone on over the past year and a half, 2 years in the world, which has weighed a lot on people and is obviously reflected in Eve, you're going to start seeing a lot of that kind of bleed off as people go to more of the outside events like Eve London, Eve Vegas. I think they had Eve Vienna a few months ago, right? When these groups happen, these meetups happen, you get back to the point of it, which is I'm playing a game with a person, right? This is not a single player game. But for some people, it almost does become a single player game because either A, they're not part of a large group or even a solid group. It doesn't have to be large. It's a solid group. But they're not part of something greater than just their personal play style, right? We've got guys that are explorers. They really play this game like 99% solo. But they're part of our community. They're on comms with us when they're out doing their thing. They're finding wormholes. They're reporting it on our Discord. They're putting it in our Pathfinder. They're out, hitting their data and relic sites and then using our buyback system to make their ISK. And we make it easy on them because we just have these collection points. They bring everything, drop it off, put the contract in, bada bing, bada boom. They make ISK. They go out and continue doing what they're doing. They have us for backup. And if they get bored and they want to go do a fleet, yeah, okay, no problem. They have the option to do that. Oh man, this exploration stuff's getting a little stale. Maybe I will fleet up. Oh, there's a small gang going out, do some hunting. Cool. So this isn't me like recruiting. I'm just saying this is what we do. But when those guys are out flying around doing their Explo stuff and we're on Discord, we're generally not talking about their data and relic sites. We're talking about military life, being disgruntled veterans from the military, Squid Game, right? Whatever's popular with us right now, whatever's the topic we feel like talking about. It's like a bunch of guys sitting around in the bar, having a drink, and just shooting the shit. And Eve is our chat room, right? It's just our visual chat room for that. I've noticed that it happens in my corporation. I noticed that it kind of happens in our alliance. It does not happen at a coalition level. And I do realize that once you get to that point, you have different communities, right? And that's understandable. You have different communities that are coming together for common causes. However, if you don't have things that are fostering that to try to get those different communities to come together, they're not going to survive very long, okay? It's just not going to happen. Again, the only thing that kept PAPI glued together for over a year to try to kill the goons was their hatred of the goons. And anytime you build a community on hate of something else, it's bound to fail eventually. Because eventually, either you're going to start seeing the enemy as humanized, or you're not going to hate them enough to care anymore. It's just not going to happen. And that's pretty much when everything fell apart. It wasn't the upper leadership that stopped doing things in PAPI. It was apathy on the part of middle management because they were sick of doing this shit, and you can't blame them. It was the CEOs and the FCs and all that said, you know what, I'm not going to push this on my guys anymore. They're not having fun. They're not having fun. And this really comes up because a couple things popped up this morning in our comms about, the like bullshit max forms for people in the coalition who don't give a shit about us. They probably don't even know our little corporation exists. There's only about, we only got about 30 members. So I'm not asking that, we're put on a pedestal. That's not what I'm asking. But when nobody feels like they're important and you feel like you're just doing things for someone else because they have an agenda, that don't work. That's why people don't like Villy, right? That's why him and Pro God Legends getting hate. These guys are, I don't think people hate them in real life, but their play style in Eve became all about this focus of what they want to do, and they were like Napoleon. They were just going to throw bodies at the problem. Let's just throw bodies at it. Go read a history of the Battle of Waterloo. And just how
Napoleon wanted his stuff back so bad. He wanted that empire back that he had lost so bad that he just threw human life away and openly said, I will throw 1 million men's lives away to accomplish my goal. He didn't care. And that was the point. And I know, you have to have acceptable losses in war. I'm a veteran. I completely understand that. But when nobody believes in the cause anymore, shit falls apart. 20 years in Afghanistan, guys. We went in there with OEF-1, those of us who are vets, we went in there with an OEF-1 thinking we had a purpose. We were doing something for our people. That's that patriotism we had. It's 2021, and I'm looking back saying, what the frick were we doing there? And I'm not trying to make this a big political rant. But it's the same thing with a lot of these PAPI guys. They're looking back over the last year going, that's how I spent my COVID time? Sitting in max form fleets, getting butchered for someone else's hate, and, that was it. And that's kind of a crappy place to be in, because we pay to play this game, right? We pay for it with money that we earn, and that's how we're going to spend it, is not being bought into someone else's dream, right? When you have alliances and coalitions and you have a focus, we're going to go hold Sov, we're going to build an empire, whatever it is, that's fantastic. But my goodness, when you got some of these coalition leaders out there that are, number one, horrible with their public relations. Some of these guys need to get some better PR people. Get them off the Twitter, right? Get them off of Reddit. Because some of these guys just really need to shut the fuck up. Because they're killing their own coalitions. Either by talking too much about stupid stuff and just trying to sound tough, or not passing information. So everybody's just left to echo chamber and kind of make up their own idea of what's going on. So here we go with that. We've got these problems within these coalitions and these alliances. So I'm really hoping that when I go to Eve Vegas, I'm going to come out the other side of it feeling a lot more energized. I think I will. Every time I've gone to FanFest, I came back completely energized. And just about every time I went to FanFest, I went 4 times, I went there kind of on the back leg on my Eve time. Like I was feeling bitter vet, and I was feeling just not even feeling it, I guess is the way to say it. I wasn't feeling Eve anymore. And then I go and I hang out with some cool people, and I met some really awesome people that shot at me and I shot at them, or that we've flown together, or just people that I never even knew existed, and now we've been friends for years. And I come back and it makes me want to play the game a little more. It makes me want to focus again. So anyway, I'm going to start wrapping this up now. We're a little over 30 minutes. But my point is, if you are an alliance leader or a corporation CEO or a director in a corporation, and you are trying to get your group off the ground or keep it going, maybe you've been around for a while and now you're trying to breathe air back into its lungs, it's on life support, and you're trying to bring this corporation or alliance or whatever back from the brink because, activity levels are low, there's apathy in your corporation, whatever it is, really start thinking about the actual people management portion of it. Find out more about your people. Stop trying to find fleets and activities for your guys for a little bit, and just do some things to get to know each other. Don't force it. Don't do a, hey, let's all get on tonight and talk about ourselves. But try to find some cool activities you can do on Discord or TeamSpeak or whatever. Or you know what? Pick another game. Play another game together. Hey, what are you guys all playing right now? Oh, New World. That's what I'm hearing a lot. A lot of guys playing New World. I'm not playing New World. Doesn't appeal to me. Okay, cool. Let's get a group of us together, go play some New World for a little bit. It's okay to step away from Eve once in a while. If you don't, you're going to go crazy. You can't eat chicken for dinner every day, guys. It'll kill you. You can't play just Eve every day. You'll be bored to tears at some point. You might not even realize it. There's guys out there that have done that. Oh, it's the only game I play, and I've been doing it for a decade. Okay, you need to step away from the computer, sir. Try a different game. Me and the boys have been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves lately. We compare it to low-sec. The whole game is low-sec. You go around, you pirate, somebody else is running PvE sites, and you wait there until they're finished with it, and then you go sink them and steal their stuff and turn it in. It's low-sec. I mean, that's all it is. So we have fun with it. We'll take a break from Eve. Might be for one night. It might be for an entire week.
Our corporation is kind of in a stand-down period right now, and that's not because of low activity levels. Our activity levels are fine, but we're getting ready to go to Eve Vegas, so we're not going to be doing a bunch of stuff going up to that and then leave things hanging in game while we're gone. No, we kind of put things into a stand-down mode. Some guys are running fleets, and some of our middle managers are running fleets. That's great, but the higher-ups, we basically told guys, if you need us, there's probably going to be at least a day delay on something. We're prepping to go to Eve Vegas. So I do hope that a handful of people who are actually going to listen to this podcast understand that this is not me trying to bash people. It's really not, except for frat. Fuck frat. Trying to reach out and encourage people to work on the non-Eve aspects of their corp, of their alliance, of their coalition. Do a good job for your people. And there will be satisfaction in that when you see them having fun and activity levels increasing and all the cool things that come along with that, right? So if you build that foundation, you can build a stronger house on top of it. Again, going back to the main example of Eve, goons have a good foundation. They didn't start as Eve players. They started off as Something Awful members that came over to play Eve, and they built from there. Now, are all goon members like these, massive Something Awful members like it used to be back in the day? No, not the whole coalition over there. The whole Imperium is not Something Awful members. They've gone beyond that, but that was their foundation. They started off as that crew, right? They had weird goals in the beginning. It was let's shit on other players and have fun and and piss people off while we play, and we fly around in Rifter fleets and get owned, and then we own other people. That was kind of where they started off. They goons used to be the shitheads, right? I mean, they're still shitheads, but they used to be the shitheads in cheap ships. So, and that's something other groups kind of latched onto. Brave used to do stuff like that too. We're going to get into cheap stuff and we're going to go out and have fun. They still do that. A lot of groups do it. But there was a culture behind that. There was a culture, and it wasn't just about Eve. You go to Something Awful, it's not all about Eve. It's about everything. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on over there. And that was the point. They brought a culture to the game. I keep using that word, the C word, culture. If you want to talk about it, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to people about it. That's something I've been doing with our corporation for a while now. And in the other corporations that we ran for years back in the day, that lasted for years, was because we had a culture behind it. There was something we were all into before guys came to Eve. We recruited from outside of Eve and brought into Eve. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to do a little soft editing on this because there were a couple areas in here where I went on some rant and raves. It's because I'm tired. I'll cut that out. But otherwise, I encourage you to please get out there, talk to your members, find out who's behind that keyboard and that mic. If you're a player and you're in a group that doesn't have that kind of culture, or the culture you're in doesn't fit with you, it's okay to look around and go find a new one. Just be nice about it. And there's people out there that'll help you find that group. So don't be afraid to reach out to those in the community and just ask. This is what I'm into. This is who I am. You'll have somebody out there go, hey man, we got a lot of people just like you. Thanks for listening to me rant and rave. This is Couldn with the Eve Lowlife podcast. Catch you in 2 weeks after Vegas. Hey, wait, you listened all the way to the end? You sexy beast. Thanks for checking out Eve Lowlife, our little Eve Online podcast about low-sec life. We hope you enjoyed it. Please keep an eye out for our future episodes and feel free to get in touch with the hosts in-game, Cypher, CHYPH3R, or Couldn, ARADUSGUNNELL. Remember, we do allow sponsorships and advertising on the show, paid in ISK, not real money. If you'd like us to plug your corporation or alliance, an upcoming event, or whatever else Eve related, reach out to us to discuss. We can help you make your ad, or you can design your own. Well, that's enough of this shit. Thanks for listening. Later, nerd.